Hello, YouTube, and welcome to D20 Woodworking. I'm your host, Jason, and today we are doing a tier list of hero-specific allies. Almost every single hero has an ally out there right now, except for, Hulk. But this is up to the release of just after Vision, right? So everything from now, or from the beginning to Vision, we are doing a tier list of. We're doing it of S, A, B, C, D, F. And yeah, I guess the first most important thing to note is that this is just my opinion, right? This is all just my opinion. A lot of this can be dependent on how often I've played with those allies in the deck or played the hero in order to get the ally out there or whatever else, right? So just understand that all this tier listing is just my opinion. And also, second, really important to note is that I am now streaming over on Twitch, twitch.tv /D20 Woodworking. If you ever want to hang out with me live and when we play some Marvel Champions or Lord of the Rings or some video games, make sure to do that. Make sure to check that out. The link is down below. So let's first dive straight into this tier list. Now, we are going to go through this list in alphabetical order and talk a little bit about the card first and then figure out a tier where I think it is. So the very first card we're doing is from the Captain America deck. It is Agent 13. She's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart for 1 consequential, 1 attack for 1 consequential. And in response, after Agent 13 enters play, remove 2 threat from a scheme. Playing her initially can reduce threat by 4, right? Essentially, if you have her enter play, you remove 2 threat from a scheme, and then you can thwart 2 off of another scheme for 3 costs. Now, 3 costs is kind of mid-range, not too bad. But I really like that aspect of this card, right? I like the fact that, it's scheming for a lot right away. It's not a great attack card, but that's okay. It doesn't really need to be. If I can get 2 thwarts out of it, and then as a blocker, I'm a pretty big fan of that out of the Captain America deck. Cap does pretty decent damage himself, and leadership always seems to balance out damage and thwarting pretty well. So I'm a fan of this card. Personally, I like this card in the BA range. In here, I think it's gonna go A. I think it's gonna be in the A range. It could drop down to B, but it's the upper half, right? It's definitely the upper half. Next up, we have one of the newer hero-specific allies, and that is Annabelle Riggs of the Valkyrie deck. So she's a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 1 consequential each. And she has an alter ego action. Exhaust Annabelle Riggs, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Valkyrie card and add it to your hand. Shuffle the rest back into your deck. This is not a great card. I don't know how to say it nicely other than that. The alter ego action isn't great. Like, I know Valk wants to flip a decent amount. She can be really good, flipping back and forth. And the action itself isn't bad. It's kind of weird that's limited to the top 5. If it was top 10, it'd be marketably better, I think. But she really just seems like the type of ally you throw in there to get a cheap ally in. If you're on the alter ego side, cool. And the fact that you can maybe get an extra card in your Valkyrie hand, right? So and you have a little bit bigger of a hand size, assuming you find that top 5 Valk card, right? I don't know. It's really hard. Not that it's hard to play this card, but it's hard to really make this card work. I mean, it seems like a generic cheap ally that could maybe possibly almost sometimes work well. And because of that, I have to drop this card way down, like F. Like, I just don't see this card really working in too many situations. I'll be completely honest. I wish it would, because I really like Valkyrie's kit, but it's a weak ally card. So I'm not that big of a fan. So let's move on next to Wasp's deck, and her signature ally is Ant-Man. So Ant-Man's a 4-cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 consequential each. Now, what it can do changes, right? So while you're in giant form, Ant-Man gains giant trait and gets +1 attack. While you're in tiny hero form, Ant-Man gains tiny trait and gets +1 thwart. So depending on if you're an attack or a thwart, it's really 3 of whichever one you want to do. So there's a little bit of planning for it, but for 4 costs and possibly 3 thwart or 3 attack with only 1 consequential and 3 life, I really like this card. Now, depending on what kind of cards you have, if they play off the giant or tiny traits, that can lead into other possibilities. But this is definitely a strong ally, right? It is an ally that is meant to help you with thwarting or attacking. its only downside really is the cost. I mean, 4 cost is a lot to swallow, especially if you are on Wasp giant side where you have a smaller hand size. That does make it a pretty expensive card at that point. But even with that being said, I think it's a good, it's a what I would consider a good solid all around card, right? To the point I'm going to put it at B. The only reason being is because the 4 cost, that is a high cost threshold. Now, if you have some resource generators, it helps make your life a little bit easier, but it is a very expensive card to get in. But once you do get it in, it's an exceptionally good card. So that's my thoughts about Ant-Man from the Wasp deck. Next up, we have Black Cat, a part of Spider-Man's deck. 2 cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack. Now, the thwart has consequential damage. The attack does not. So force response, after you play Black Cat, discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Add each card with a printed science resource discard this way to your hand. So there's a possibility she could be played for 2 and get you 2 cards. It's not guaranteed. You might end up discarding cards. But the idea of that is honestly really kind of great. I really like this card. I like Spider-Man overall. I think Spider-Man's an exceptionally good hero. And I feel like this card is kind of the epitome of his deck, right? There is a lot of science. If you build around it, if you build the deck right, it really shines. To get Black Cat out there with no consequential damage on the attack is nice. If you just use it for pinging damage, if you put on attachments so that she attacks a bit higher, even better. I think Black Cat's fantastic. Again, I get stuck between A and B, but I'm gonna go with A with Black Cat. I think Black Cat's a solid A. I think she's a really good ally. Next up, we have from the Spectrum deck, Blue Marvel. 3 costs, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life. Hero response, after Blue Marvel enters play, change energy forms. It's a little bit of expensive, but honestly, being able to change energy forms is really nice. Now, it doesn't, when I played Spectrum, it doesn't always work out that way, right? There was a lot of times when I didn't really need to change energy forms, so the hero response wasn't that great. But for 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 3 costs isn't bad. The only time it doesn't work out is if you have like a Spectrum-focused attack or thwart card, because you want to play them over this ally almost every time. Her cards, I think, are really good. And that's like the only weird thing that hinders him. So if you, again, resource generators are key. But if you have another card from her deck, I almost feel like I want to play those other cards versus the Blue Marvel card. I still think it's a very good card. I think it really helps round out her deck. There's a lot of cards in there that can change energy form, but to have another option, then plus something that can attack or thwart for 2 is obviously huge. I think the only thing that kind of like oddly holds him back is the fact that the rest of her deck is so good. And I don't know if I always want to spend 3 resources to get him out. Like it's such a weird thing, to be honest. Like even saying it out loud seems weird, but that's just kind of how I feel about that. So I'm going to put him B. He's a solid B. I got to play more Spectrum. He might get up into the 8 range, I think. All right, next up we have Captain Marvel, the Spider-Woman deck. She's a 4 cost ally, 2 threat, 2 attack, 3 life. And after she uses a basic power, she draws 1 card, which is really nice. All right, so being able... You have to get out of the mindset of using all your allies as blockers, right? It's a trap that a lot of people fall into, I think, early on in the game. But to draw 1 card each time you use a basic power is kind of huge, and especially a 2/2 power. Yes, it's a little expensive, which is probably the only drawback from this card. But the fact is that she should mostly pay for herself, right, in 3 rounds, or get close to paying for herself, right? In those 3 rounds, you should be able to draw 3 cards. It's definitely a solid card. It's definitely a solid card. The only thing that kind of stinks now is to get the most value of this card, she has to stay on the table. And there are a lot of cards out there now that are kind of doing, 1 damage to every character on the table, which isn't ideal, especially for a card like this, but it's still solid. It's still solid. It's still super strong and super powerful. I think it belongs in the A tier. I could see it in the S tier, but my S tier cards, I want to be very few. And I think there are 1 or 2 S tier cards that are just so incredibly good that they have to go up there. So next we have up from the Nebula deck, a Gamora. 3 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life. Kind of seen this pattern before. After you play Gamora, choose a technique upgrade you control, then resolve its special ability. That's kind of huge, right? Playing Nebula's technique special abilities can be really good. And to be able to trigger it kind of more, not on command, obviously, but by playing this card is huge. 3 cost is not bad at all for this card. 2 attack, 2 thwart. If you have a ton of techniques that you can choose from, that's great. It would have been even more powerful if you use certain cards and it activated all of them. But yeah, I mean, she's definitely a very, very, very solid hero. Again, another one that I get almost close to S tier. I'm going to put her in A. This is a lot in A already, but she is super solid. So that is Gamora. So next up, we have Hellcat. 3 cost, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 3 life. Her action lets you return Hellcat to your hand. Now, if you have a bunch of resource generators that you can get this card out over and over, maybe this works well. It's kind of a weird card, especially the way we play a lot of cards now, because we do use cards as blockers a lot of time. Now, if you have a lot of other options or you don't mind She-Hulk taking damage, it's not that big of a deal. But it is a little bit weird of a card that's just basically returned to your hand to hopefully play in the future. It's not awful. It's not awful by any means. But I feel like a lot of times it's just more valuable instead of playing her back out to get another 2 thwart, possibility out there. It's better to just let her be used as a blocker, honestly. So her special ability is kind of weak in my opinion. The 2 thwart's fantastic, especially for 3 costs. 1 attack is a little weak. We've seen other heroes already with, Gamora and whatnot, being 3 costs, 2/2. It's just a little weak in my opinion. She's between C and D. If she has slightly better skill, she'd probably go up to C, but I'm going to drop her to D. But maybe I need to play more She-Hulk and she can get to C possibly. But for right now, I think I'm okay. Next up, we have from the War Machine deck, Iron Man. 3 costs, 2 attack, 2 thwart, and 3 life. Response. After Iron Man enters play, search your deck and discard pile for a tech upgrade and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. I think it's fantastic. Adds another card to your hand. Does pretty well. Obviously, getting those tech upgrades for War Machine is huge. Now, the only downside is, right, you either are out of tech upgrades, right, or you don't need any of the ones that are there. Though you should take it anyway, obviously, because then it's just a free resource. But if you're out of it, that's the only downfall, I guess. It's not a big downfall, but it's a little bit of one. But his stat line's good. I mean, he's definitely between an A and a B. I'm going to say his special ability is a little bit weaker than these A-tier heroes, just because there is a decent situation where this doesn't work. Now, you could make the same argument for Gamora, right? If there's not a technique in play, it doesn't work as well. I get it. So again, I think that's one of the downfalls of Gamora and one of the upswings of Iron Man or whatever. So I get you can make that argument between those two because they are very similar in nature. But honestly, between B and A, either of them can switch and go back and forth. That's kind of like a mushy area right there. All right, so next up we have Lady Sif. Now, 4 costs, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life. A little more expensive than usual. After she enters play, ready Thor or Odinson. Now, this could be a very, very, very good card if it costs 3. If it costs 3, I think this is an insanely good card because Thor, you can probably get swinging 4 or 5 pretty easily, right? You can get Thor swinging for a lot, doing a lot of things when he's ready. The problem is it paying for this card. Now, if you get the Thor's +1 hand size card, it's not as bad. Still using your entire hand to ready up Thor. But it's just at a 4 cost, it's kind of really expensive. Again, I like the idea of her, and I could see her in C if you have 5 cards you're drawing each time. But if you don't, then she's in D. So I'm going to put her in C right now because you should be getting 5 cards with Thor. I'm assuming you get that upgrade out in time. But she could be between C and D. I mean, completely honest, depending on your game state and where you are right then, I want to like the card a lot more than what it is, but it's just 4 costs. It's just hard to swallow, especially for a Thor deck. So next up, we have Drax. Drax's hero-specific ally is Mantis. Now, this is one of the more unique cards. And when I first saw this card, I didn't quite get it till I started playing with the card, and I realized how incredibly good it is. So Mantis is 2 costs, 2 thwart with 1 consequential, and 1 attack with 2 consequential damage, 3 life. Exhaust Mantis and deal 1 damage to her, but you heal 3 damage from an identity. Now, using this in Drax's deck makes Drax super powerful, right? Drax wants to get hit. Now, the only downside is with Drax is obviously he gets hit too much, he loses or has to flip over or whatever else. Basically, as he gets hit, right, it gains more attack for the possibility of getting 4 attack on each swing from just getting hit, essentially. Then his upgrades can get him even higher. You're now healing him for a 2-cost card up to 9 damage worth. That's insane. That's really, really insane if played right. Now, obviously, there are situations when damage to all characters on the table, right? It would hurt her a lot and you lose 3 life essentially, plus whatever damage you took. There's ways that this could hurt you a lot and could stumble this card a bit. But honestly, for 2 cost, and I guess you could throw it if you really wanted to. I think I've done it maybe once. But to heal 3 damage 2 rounds in a row and then decide if you want to use her as a blocker that's going to take over more than 3 damage or just heal another 3, it's huge. I mean, this is one of the most unique allies in here. She's super, super helpful for Drax. And it's going to be our first S tier ally that we have. I mean, just she's absolutely fantastic. I love her cards. Next up, we have Mockingbird from Hawkeye's deck. Mockingbird, 3 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life. Back to our pattern. So to interrupt, when the villain initiates an attack against you, spend 1 resource of any type and return Mockingbird to your hand. Prevent all damage from this attack. This is really good now, especially with villains swinging for a lot, right? There are times that you are playing against certain villains and could be they're swinging for 4 or 5 damage plus a boost card or 2, and you know there's gonna be a boost card or 2. It's gonna be swinging a lot. Basically, you're spending 1 resource to cancel all that damage, and you just have to take Mockingbird back in your hand. I think when this ally first came out, it was a bit weaker of an ally, but to be able to prevent a ton of damage, I mean, just an absolute ton. And more importantly, you still get her out, right? For the 3 costs, you can do 2 thwart, 2 attack, which is super helpful. And instead of just using her as a blocker and she gets discarded, if you can bring her back to your hand, I think that works out pretty well. Essentially, it's an extra card in your hand. If you have resource generators, it works really well. She is so close to S tier. The only thing is it can get expensive. This isn't a thing you can obviously repeat. Like Mantis, you can kind of repeat that quite a few times for a cheap cost. But I think she's a solid A. I could see S in certain circumstances. I mean, again, I've had villains swing like Ronin for double-digit amounts, and to be able to cancel that for 1 resource, absolutely huge. So I think she's an incredibly strong card. I think it's just kind of dependent on what the situation is, and she's a little expensive to try to get out there repeatedly. Next up is Nebula from Gamora's deck. A 2 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 health ally. Now, after Nebula enters play, search your deck for an attack or thwart event and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. The fact that you can search your entire deck is what makes this card really good. And it's only 2 costs, which is much better than a lot of the other things. To me, this is another S tier ally. I think the pattern we see of a lot of 3 cost cards for 2, 2, 3. Yes, she has 1 less life, which isn't as good, but a lot of times you get kind of in a tough spot where you have to use a blocker early. Whatever. I love the Nebula card. I really do. I think it's fantastic. It took me a while to come around on it, but to be able to get the attack or thwart out from your entire deck is what kind of makes this huge, right? Especially if you could play her early. Next up, we have Nova from Star-Lord's deck. Now, Nova Prime's a 5 cost, 2, 3, 3. Right, 1 consequential on each of those thwart and attack. Response: after you play Nova Prime from your hand, defeat a non-elite minion, which could be good, right? We're seeing more and more minions be elite versions of themselves, right? So I don't think it's as good as it used to be. But man, is it expensive. For 3 costs, you kind of have to pay this with Star-Lord's special ability to reduce the cost by 3. But still, it's just such an incredibly expensive card. I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm torn between the D and an F for this card. I think it's more useful than Annabelle, so I think that's why it goes to a D. But like, barely. I have such a hard time getting this card out there and getting it played. I don't know. It's just I don't think you can. It's just such a tough card. I don't know. This is one of those ones I want you to let me know in the comments what you think about it. I've never really gotten Nova Prime to work. I like the idea of it. It's just such an expensive card. I just don't think it works well. So next up, we have Pip the Troll from Adam Warlock's deck. 2 costs, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 life. It comes in with toughness. When Pip the Troll is in your hand, he gains interrupt. When a player is attacked, spend a science and energy resource and put Pip the Troll into play under that player's control. I guess it's kind of good. Right. I guess the idea is that when a player is attacked, you could put him in for the 2 resources, but it has to be specific resources. I like the idea that it comes in with tough at least, so he's not terrible. I don't know. Again, I've only played Warlock a handful of times, and I've just never really played Pip the Troll. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing something that could make him really good. This is no one. Please let me know in the comments if you made this far. Maybe there's something I'm missing with Pip, but I don't see a lot of value in him because I never play him. To be completely honest, because of his toughness, at least it helps a bit. So I'm gonna put him in at D. But I feel like I'm missing something with him. Somehow getting him to really interrupt attacks and not make Adam not get hit. I don't know. But again, I haven't played a ton of Adam Warlock, so really this ranking maybe doesn't count as much, right? So let me know. I need to play more Adam Warlock in general, but let me know how I should be using Pip to become, better with him. All right, next up we have from Scarlet Witch deck, we have Quicksilver. A 4 cost, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 4 life, and you ready Quicksilver once per phase. Here's the thing. I really like Wanda's deck. I love Scarlet Witch. I love all of her cards. I don't love this one. 4 costs for 1 thwart and 2 attack with 4 life. I like the bonus of the 4 life, but we've seen so many cards that are really the sweet spots, a 3/2/2, like 3. 1 extra cost and you're losing a thwart, but you're getting a life. I don't think losing a thwart to gain a life is a good trade-off. I think the 4 is a weird amount too, because if you use them twice in a row, you can get 4 damage out there in 1 round, which is huge, right? It is huge, especially if you can put attachments on him and whatever. Let's say you get +1 attack onto him, you can do 6 damage in 1 round. I get it. It can be really huge and well done, but it feels very specialty because then the next round, if you refresh him and use him again, you took out Quicksilver and you have no blocker. It's just a weird card. I think the cost is too high for what it is. I think if you build it out right, it's not bad, but I don't love it. I never find myself playing because again, Wanda's one of those other heroes where there's so many good cards in her deck generally that I look at Quicksilver and I just don't want to pay the 4 for it. I really don't. So I kind of see it as a Lady Sif problem. I see the potential for it. I see where it could be really good, but it just never really works out that way for me. So anyway, solid C ranking. Maybe I try to build around him more and do more with him. I don't know. We'll see moving forward. All right, next up we have Red Dagger, part of Miss Marvel's deck. A 3/2/2/3, as we've come to expect from some of the better cards. When Red Dagger is defeated, spend 2 resources of different types, deal 2 damage to an enemy, and return Red Dagger to your hand. I like this card. It's not a top tier card for me because again, you are spending 2 resources, but you get the card back in order to play it again, and it does 2 damage for 2 costs, which isn't a great switch, but if you're using him as a blocker anyway, and you can spend 2 resources of different types, so you can't use a double, right? But if you have a resource generator and something else, it works out well. Deal 2 damage and return it to your hand to be played again. If you get a good system of Red Dagger and putting this card in, I think it can be really good, but it's not over the top amazing, right? It doesn't have anything too amazing that stands out in my mind. I don't know. I like Miss Marvel. I like Red Dagger, but I'm not like in love with the card. Because that is a lot of resources to get the damage out there. So I like Red Dagger around a B. I could be talked into like C range, but for right now, I think he's a solid B. Next up, we have Scarlet Witch, part of Quicksilver's deck, a 3/1/1/3. Now, when you use one of Scarlet Witch's basic powers, discard the top card of the encounter deck. For each boost icon discarded this way, Scarlet Witch gets +1 to that power to use. Now, this can be, again, really, really good. I actually think Scarlet Witch is a pretty good card because a lot of times Quicksilver, you want to build out with a lot of attachments. You're not playing a lot of like cards from his hand most of the time. But if you know, especially if you know the next boost card's a 3, right? And she's swinging for 4, that's huge. Or if you're just playing against an enemy that has a 2-point something average, so you know she's going to probably swing for 3 on each attack or 3 for each thwart, I think the value's a lot there. I definitely think it's a lot better than Quicksilver's card. I really like the Scarlet Witch card. And even if it doesn't get rid of a card with a lot of boost icons, if it gets rid of like an advance, right, a really bad card, I think that's really beneficial too. Now, obviously that can backfire too, right? Because the next card under it's really bad. I don't know. But I really like Scarlet Witch. When I play Quicksilver, she is a card I tend to get in there. So I'm going to put her right into the A category. Again, certain circumstances can push her down to a B, depending on how it works out. But for the most part, whenever I play her, it works pretty darn well. So next up, we have Shuri from Black Panther's deck. 2 costs, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 life. Now, a little bit cheaper, so she does less damage and thwarting, which I'm good with that trade-off, because after she enters play, search your deck for an upgrade and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Now, again, this can be bad. We talked about this as Iron Man, right? That if you don't have the ability to, find that card in your deck, whatever. It's not as great. I can get the same argument with this one, but because of her lower cost, I like this card more. I know she doesn't swing it for as much, but all of Black Panther is built off of these upgrade cards. I get it. Same with, I get the tech cards are really important too for War Machine, but Black Panther's upgrades, you have to be really running through them well. I like this card. I like that it's a bit cheaper. I'm a sucker for slightly cheaper cards. I'm putting it at A. I get the argument for B. I really do. And you could probably drop her down to that. But I think for the lower cost card, I like this. I like this card. I like this card a lot. Spider-Woman, part of Captain Marvel deck. 3 costs, 2/2/2. All right, so a little bit less life than a lot of other allies. After Spider-Woman enters play, confuse a villain. When I feel like this card first came out, that was huge because there wasn't a lot of ways to confuse the villain, right? Now that we have cards out there that do it easier, especially in the Justice deck, has a lot of options. This doesn't seem as powerful as it was when it first came out. Now, confusing a villain, still huge. Captain Marvel, though, I flip sometimes, not a ton, I'll be honest. So confusing the villain isn't as important to me. So it feels like for the Captain Marvel kit, it's not as helpful, right? It's helpful, but it's not as helpful. 3 costs, 2/2/2/2. I wish it had the 1 extra health. I think because it doesn't, it kind of drops it down. I'm going to drop this one down to a C. Again, I'm not flipping a lot with Captain Marvel, so I don't care about confusing the villain as much, but maybe I should. If you get an advanced card, I get it. It still has its benefits in there to have it just in case. But yeah, it's not a card I love. I feel like it was stronger when it first came out, but now that there's more options to confuse the villain, it's not as good. So next up, we have Vivian. Vivian is a 2 cost, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 life. So when you're in intangible mass form, Vivian gets 2 thwart. When you're in dense mass form, Vivian gets +2 attack. This card is nuts. This card is nuts. This is a disgustingly good card. I'll be completely honest. Even if it was just that by itself, right? Where she could do 3 attack and then be a blocker, right? That's pretty darn good. Or 3 thwart would be. But what you can use is from the basic deck to reboot, I believe it's the card. Reboot her, which readies her back up and heals her. Now she could do 6 in 1 round and be back at 1 consequence, or be back at 1 damage. With certain basic cards, she becomes nuts. I mean, she becomes absolutely nuts. I think, honestly, disgustingly good. I guess her only weakness is that she's not an Avenger. I guess that's the only complaint I've ever seen of her, that you can't use certain Avenger cards on her. Okay. Like, I don't think you really need to. I think she is arguably the strongest ally specific card in the game. Really, she should be in the front of this list. She's probably the strongest. I don't see much being her because it doesn't take much to get her going, right? You can build her up. She's super powerful. The only downside is, again, if there's an attack that does 2 damage to every character on the table, then she's knocked out. That's the only bad thing, but there are ways to get Android cards back in your hand, so it's a little bit of finagling, but she's super strong, especially for that cost. A 2 cost would essentially do a 3/3/2, right? She's very, very strong. So Vivian, not only S tier, but probably the best of the S tiers, the absolute top. All right, next we have War Machine from Iron Man's deck. 4 cost, 1 thwart, 2 attack, and 4 life. So you can exhaust War Machine and deal 2 damage to him to deal 1 damage to each enemy. It's not a bad idea, right? It's not a bad idea. The problem is 1 damage to each enemy is just so incredibly weak to do 2 damage to him, right? You could do this attack twice, but you can't like attack or thwart with him. I don't know. Like I could see the situation where maybe this works out really well, but for 4 costs too, especially Iron Man, that's always kind of struggling with cards until you really build them out. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I think it's a bit weak. I like the idea of it. I do like the idea. I don't know. I could never get to work, especially for 1 damage to each enemy. It's so little now. Like, again, back in the day when a lot of these cards, minions only had 1, 2, maybe 3 life. It's a much more valuable card, but nowadays it drops. And I don't see it ever going back up. I just see it continuously dropping. So, all right, next up we have Wasp from Ant-Man's deck. 3 costs, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 life, our usual set. Hero response: after Wasp enters play, deal 2 damage to an enemy if you're in giant form, or remove 2 threat from a scheme if you are in tiny form. I love this card. I think this card's absolutely fantastic. Essentially, if you're in, if you're in giant hero form, you could do 2 damage and then another 2 right on top of it, then use it for a blocker if you want. Or if you're in tiny form, do a 2 thwart and then 2 more thwart, or mix and match, right? 2 damage and 2 thwart, whatever it is. There's so many options with this card, especially for 3 costs. Use it for 2 rounds, use her as a blocker then. I think that's a really strong hero response. I really love this card in general. I don't think it's S tier good, but it's pretty darn close. It's pretty, I mean, these S tier cards are just so good that I think she's right there on the cusp, but not quite there. So I'm putting her to the very front of the A tier. I know in the tiers, I haven't really been ranking them within the tiers, but I think she's right there between S and A. I think she's incredibly good. So next up, we have Winter Soldier, part of Black Widow's deck. 4 cost, a little expensive, but 2 thwart, 2 attack, 4 life. Now, you reduce the cost to play Winter Soldier by 1 for each prep card you control. This can be really good, right? Bucky Barnes can be exceptionally good. Even if you only have 1 prep card in there, it's back down to what we normally would expect to pay, right? The 3 cost for 2/2, 3 life normally, he has 4. This card I think is really, really solid. You do need a prep card. Obviously, if you don't have a prep card, now he's in the C, maybe B range. With the prep card, I think he's in the B-A range. I'm going to put him at the very end of the A because I do see how he could drop down to the B. If you don't have prep cards in, you're not going to play him. You're going to get stuck and bad things are going to happen. I get it. But honestly, I think he's an A-B, somewhere in there. Very good card, assuming you have the prep cards. If you have a bunch of prep cards, he's really good. It means a really cheap ally then to put out there. So our last one that we have is Wong from Doctor Strange's deck. A 3 cost, 1 thwart, 2 attack. 3 life card. So a little bit different, right? A little weaker on the thwart, which is fine because you can exhaust Wong, choose to either heal 1 damage from your identity card or discard the top card of the invocation deck. Now, the reason this is huge is because in the invocation deck, 3 of the cards are exceptionally good. The 4th card's pretty darn good, and the 5th one's a little weak. It's nice to be able to get rid of that card on command. Normally, the way you would get rid of that, I believe, is only from alter ego actions. Is the only way you get rid of that top card. If you get stuck on a card, it's nice that you can exhaust him without doing damage to him, right? That's the other big thing. You're not doing damage to Wong. You just have to exhaust him, which isn't bad. He can still swing for 2, which is good. His thwarting's a little bit weak, but that's fine, whatever. And then you can heal 1 damage from your identity, which is also nice. Like it's a cheap heal, I guess, for Doctor Strange. I don't think I've ever used Wong to heal, but I guess you could. Right, I guess you could. So it's not a bad card. It's gonna be our last A card. Again, he's good. I think for his Strange's deck, it makes a lot of sense. It only to get his most value is when it when basically there's an invocation card that you can't play or you don't want to play. That's where you get a lot of his value to be able to skip past that, get the next invocation card, whatever. I like him for that. Then you can use him as a cheap block. That's fine too. But and then the other big thing is, well, if you don't want to use it for that, you can just heal 1 and it doesn't do damage to Wong, which is the big thing, right? If it did damage each time you did it, this card drops down to a B, but it doesn't. So I think it's pretty solid. So anyway, there you have it. There is my tier list from all the hero specific allies that are out there. Really appreciate you all hanging out and stopping by and being here a part of it. If you haven't at this point subscribed and liked this video, please do. It helps out the channel a ton. And yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed this list. If there's anything that either I'm missing that you think that I got wrong in this deck list, let me know. If you think that there's anything that that I overlooked or that I think is too much of value, let me know as well. Or just look at this list. There's a lot more A-tiered heroes in there or allies. I probably would drop some to B, but it's not a huge deal. But anyway, I appreciate you all taking the time to watch this. And like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Take care.